Welcome along to 98 No Out. Today I am transporting everyone off to beautiful Barbados, where I'm joined by my good friend Roland Butcher, who's got a new book out. He's going to tell us all about it. So welcome along. Good to see you, Roland. How are you, sir?
Darren, always a pleasure to talk to you and to see you. And yeah, I'm very well.
Yeah, it's the depths of winter over here. The snow has gone, but most Bajans wouldn't know about that, would they? I don't think there's ever been anything like that
I
there.
don't think they would want to either.
Although I did read once about at Christmas time, some of the old folks like to paint the front of their yard white so it looks like it's been snowing, but I think that's an old tradition.
Well, I think it's a tradition that they should forget about because I think if they ever experienced the snow, they definitely wouldn't want to do it again.
Well, when my dad came over from Guyana in 1961, and he had never ever experienced anything less than 30 degrees centigrade. And that was one of the coldest winters that this country had ever had. And he told me about he'd only been here something like 2 months and um, almost said to his sister, "Can you send me some money so I can come home?"
But like everything else, you get used to it.
Exactly, exactly. Now you've got this book coming out, I believe. Do you want to just tell me a bit about it?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, thanks for having me. I would really like to talk about my autobiography, Breaking Barriers, Barbados to England and back, which will be released in April 2025 here in first of all in the Caribbean and then um, in England in early May. Well, this book is more it's more than just my story. It's really a celebration of resilience, breaking boundaries, and embracing identity. In a world that often challenges both. So I'm really excited to share it with the world.
It is a story because I think when you came, it covers quite an interesting period in cricket. And when you were first, you grew up in Barbados, but then you came to England as a youngster. Um, what was it like in those days?
Well, it was very difficult for me because just as you give the example of your father in Guyana, similarly Barbados is the same weather-wise to start with. You know, we have 30-degree heat here in Barbados. Coming to England at a young age was a real culture shock, certainly on the weather front. Also, a culture shock in terms of, in Barbados, I'm very much a country boy. You come to England, obviously a much bigger place, much more built up, a lot more people, and more importantly, here in Barbados as a youngster, I never saw many white people. But
Yeah,
that you come to England and suddenly, you're seeing all shades of people from all different parts of the world. So, that was pretty difficult to start with, but in time, you learn to adapt and move forward.
what were the big? You talk about resilience being a theme of your story. What were the biggest challenges that you faced as a young sportsman coming to this country?
Well, I think as a youngster in the country, obviously, uh, you know, you, at that time, I guess there were not a large contingent of black people in England, so it was relatively new. It was in the 60s. So, you know, I guess people had to get familiar with you. And as initially people fear something that they believe is different. Anything different, um, there's a fear by people who believe that because you're different, that there is a problem. So basically, um, what you have to do is to understand the situation. That's the first thing. As a kid, it's not easy to understand those situations because you're still a kid. You don't really understand. But so getting used to the fact that you were different, or in the eyes of people, you were different, and over time, people had to come to really understand you and appreciate you, and also from your point of view as well, because you know they appear to be different as well. So you had to get used to that. But it was all part of the learning cycle. And as you move forward, I think everybody gets to realize that we're all the same, really.
Oh
We
yeah.
may just be different skin colors, but at the end of the day, we still breathe the same air.
As an elderly relative said to me, a fool is a fool, no matter what they look like. It's an
Very
old
true.
West Indian saying, I think.
Yeah.
So, what was it brought you over? What made you depart the beautiful Barbados, the beautiful
Well,
island of Barbados, to come to the UK?
well, that wasn't my decision. Basically, it was my father's decision. He had been in the UK for a long time, and obviously, wanted his kids, which was myself and my sister, who were born in Barbados, to join the family. So really, it was his decision for us to come to England. It's obviously not something that I had jumped at because, you're pretty much going into the unknown. I was pretty comfortable where I was, but all's well that ends well.
That's right. No, and exactly. And what a success you made of it all. For any young listeners that don't know, Roland was the first black guy to play cricket, Test cricket for England. But along the way, you joined Middlesex. How did your cricket career develop in England in those days? What was the pathway to get you through to those heights?
Well, my pathway was basically from club cricket in Stevenage in Hertfordshire, Gloucestershire youth team, then MCC young professionals, um, from the Middlesex, and really that's where it really started and finished because I was a Middlesex player right throughout my career. So in total, spent 20 years at Lords, 2 years with the MCC, and 18 with Middlesex. So that really was my pathway over the period.
How did it feel stepping up at Lords for the very first time?
Well, I think with the young pros was that really was a good apprenticeship being with the MCC young professionals because that apprenticeship was really preparing you for the first class game. So we were lucky in that sense. A lot of players came straight out of club cricket into a first class club, and it's a difficult jump. We were lucky. I had 2 years as an MCC young professional, and they prepared you in every way, physically, mentally. You got the level of second 11 matches, everything to develop your game. So when you came into the first class game, even though you don't know what first class cricket is like, you're pretty much on the pathway to being a professional cricketer. So those 2 years were extremely important for me.
Of course, you were part of one of the great Middlesex teams of that period of the late 70s and into the 80s. But there was also a good contingent of black guys there as well. Will Slack, Norman Cowans, yourself.
Neil
So,
Williams, and Wayne Daniel. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the Middlesex side, certainly in the 70s to the 90s, was heavily populated with black players. And, all of those players went on to play Test cricket. There were five of us in the Middlesex team. As I said, the Will Slack, myself, um, Norman Cowans, Neil Williams, and of course Wayne Daniel. But obviously he played for West Indies, so the other four played for England. So, it proved a good investment for Middlesex. And along the way, we also became perhaps the most successful and dominant county side in England. So, yeah, at that time, yeah, Middlesex perhaps were a club ahead of their times. I don't think many of the other clubs had that number of black players on their staff. Certainly Middlesex did. And obviously, they were interested in having the best players. Didn't matter where they came from. And, the coach Don Bennett, that was his job to find the talent and bring it to the club and then develop it for the first team to hand over to Mike Brealey and Mike Gattin. And we were lucky to be part and parcel of that and of the success of Middlesex as well.
Yeah, you mentioned two absolute legends of the English game, Mike Brealey and Mike Gatting, and Mike Gatting, of course, known for his athleticism and his fitness levels as well.
Well, I think people misunderstand Mike Gattin because they imagine because of his size that he's not agile and he's not fit. But I can tell you it's the complete opposite. Mike Gattin was a very fit guy. He didn't, he played a lot of squash, etc., etc. He was extremely fit. He could bowl for long periods in the nets, and obviously his batting, he batted for long periods. So I think people made up these stories about him, but and in training, he would be up the front. He wouldn't be at the back languishing with the strugglers. So no, I mean he was not just a good cricketer. I think he was a very hard working one as well.
Yeah, I'm being a bit naughty there because yeah, you're right, and he was a tremendous captain both for Middlesex and for England as well, and continues to do so much good work for the game. He's obviously really heavily involved. So England came calling next. How did you find out you were going to be playing for England for the first time?
It's in a roundabout way, really. It was really my wife called me at Lords and asked me if I'd been selected for England, and my response was no, I wasn't aware of that. But she said her boss had heard it on the radio. Uh, Nobody had told me at Lords I was there training, and it wasn't really until about 9 o'clock that night that I really found out for sure when I was at home watching the news that I saw that I had been selected. So I think things have changed a bit these days now. I think they communicate a little bit better.
Yeah, that's right. And so your first game was a pretty special one.
Yes, it was. Obviously, because number one, it's your first game, and second, it was against the mighty Australian side. And great to see that we prevailed in that game, won the game, and I also did pretty well, so that was a bonus.
Were they as hard playing and aggressive as people say?
Listen, Australians, I love the way they play cricket. It's to them, they play it hard and they expect people to play it hard. And if you play just as hard and as well, you're well appreciated. I to this day, I just love the way they play the game. I mean, they've got some of the traits that I've spoke about, things like resilience, etc. I mean, they are very resilient, very adaptable when it comes to cricket. So yeah, it was great playing against them, and obviously playing against some of the great players of Australian cricket of all time. When you talk about Lily Thompson, Chappell, Marsh, people like that. Kim Hughes. So those are some of the top players that's ever played for Australia. So to be on the same field as those guys and to do well against them and to win was a special feeling.
Yeah, I can only dream about doing something like that. And how about when you were playing against West Indies? Mixed emotions?
Well, not really mixed emotions. I think by that time, obviously, I was very much an English player. I'd been in England since 1967. This is my games against West Indies was in 81. So, I am very much an English player. There was no mixed emotions about playing. I think the emotions came at the fact that my first test match was actually in Barbados. Obviously the place of my birth. So that also was a very special occasion, but certainly nothing mixed about playing against the West Indies. For me, I was playing against the greatest team in the world at that time, the West Indies. A real challenge. We had a very strong side, but still wasn't strong enough for a team that hadn't lost a series for God knows how many years.
Yeah, I think at that time, and I can remember that side very well, that there was no one in the world that could compete really. I think there were that Australian side from that time were very strong, and England were very strong, but The West Indies just seem to find that extra gear the whole time, whether it was with the bat or with the ball.
Well, the other thing about it is that they had so much quality in all departments. Every area of the game was covered. You know, they had the two best opening batsmen in the world in Greenwich and Haynes. They had the best number three in Viv Richards. You know, they had Clive Lloyd. You know, and you come down the line, and then you end up with the 4 or 5 fast bowlers at the end: Roberts, Marshall, Garner, Croft, um, etc. So, you know, a pretty special team and a pretty special time in West Indies cricket. So it would have been difficult at that time, really, with the quality of players they had for any team to be successful against them on a regular basis.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So you had this great career with England and with Middlesex, but life took you back to the country of your birth, back to Barbados. Tell me about that, how that came about, and what you've been doing in Barbados.
Yeah, that came about. I came back to Barbados actually in 2004. I was offered a job at the University of the West Indies as the director of sport to develop sport into a professional sphere. That's a challenge that I really wanted to take on and came back just to do that. And I think I was pretty successful in doing it. I ended up being at university some 15 years, having initially come for a two-year contract. So I ended up staying 15. And by that time, obviously, you were pretty settled back here. So Barbados very much is my home. I spent I spent half the year here and the other half away from here. But yeah, 15 years, very, very enjoyable 15 years at university. It wasn't always easy. I can honestly say that having left the university, I left it in a very healthy state in terms of fantastic facilities, great sporting teams that dominate all sports really in Barbados: cricket, football, netball, volleyball, etc. Professionalized the whole setup, employed coaches, physios, the whole works. And yeah, I think it was an exciting 15 years back in Barbados. But as I said, I've retired now, and as a retired person, I'm doing the things that I want to do. As you know, I spend the summers in England commentating. I'm still very much in love with the game. I was on the Barbados Cricket Association board as a director for 10 years. Everton Week Centre of Excellence, I was chairman of that. I was also on the Football Association board as the director, and as I said, a West Indies selector. So my hands have been pretty full, and I'm still enjoying life and still enjoying the game.
You mentioned football. You were quite a tidy footballer as well back in the day. Did you play for Stevenage when you were in England?
Yeah, listen, football is, something that I grew to love. When I came to England, I had no experience of football, but that is the English culture. So I very quickly got into it and got to like it and was pretty good at it as well. So I did end up playing for Stevenage, semi-professional, and I was the first black player ever to play for Stevenage. So, that was nice as well. I also played for another local club, Biggleswade. And on top of that, I am a UEFA licensed football coach.
Wow.
Spent 10 years working with the soccer schools with Arsenal, both in England and overseas. Also worked with Brendan Rodgers at Reading as an academy coach. And yeah, I've been involved with football. And since I've been here back in the Caribbean, I think in 2020, actually, just into the pandemic, I also wrote a football manual as well. So yeah, football is very much something that I love. I'm having to endure some hard times at the moment watching Man United and Arsenal, the two teams that I support. But apart from that, I follow the game here in Barbados religiously.
Well, as you know, I'm a regular visitor to Barbados, and one of the things I really enjoy is is meeting the locals, and everyone's very knowledgeable about sports. And it's not just cricket. You know, people assume that it's all about cricket because you can get into big discussions with local guys about football. They can talk about Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, whatever. Um, what is it about Barbados that everyone's so sports mad?
Well, that's a very good question. Maybe it's in the water. Who knows? But yeah, they're mad about sport. You're right when you say football. I mean, football is the biggest sport. Participation, fans in Barbados, but not just in Barbados, in the Caribbean. Um, People are really big fans. I mean, and big supporters of, particularly Premier League teams. I think most of the fans would be Premier League fans. Then you would also have people that support teams in La Liga and Serie A, etc. But those conversations continue on a daily basis. Football is huge here. Unfortunately, the Barbados team doesn't match the passion of the of the fans in terms of their player. But yeah, it's a big deal. There's no question about that.
And returning to cricket, you're wearing a Barbados Royals shirt, which is beautiful, very smart. Um, the women's game is developing well, like it is everywhere. I think it's on such a huge trajectory, but certainly you are very involved with what's going on in Barbados with them.
Yeah, most definitely. I am the president of the Barbados Royals Girls Cricket Club, and that's a club that I founded with some others over a year ago. And basically, it's the first girls cricket club in Barbados. In actual fact, it's the first girls cricket club in the Caribbean. And really, we are part of the Royals group. So we're sponsored by the Barbados Royals. And so that's why we're called the Barbados Royals Girls Cricket Club. So, yep, that's something that is really dear to my heart. It's the opportunity really for me to, give something back, not just to Barbados, to the sport, also to, female cricket, which really has been neglected in Barbados and this part of the world. No development programs anywhere to bring them through, even though the women's game is such a huge game around the world at the moment. Still in the Caribbean, we are still light years behind in terms of development. In many cases, haven't even started development. This perhaps is one of the few development programs in the region. So I'm very proud of that. We get great support from the Royals, both the organisation, obviously, and the Rajasthan Royals. And then obviously the support also we get from both the men's team and the female team as well, senior and professional teams. So there is a connection. And, we've had several events where the professional team, both male and females, have come together, with the girls. They're now beginning to understand really what needs to happen. The Barbados Cricket Association has also come on board and they've done a few events with us jointly. Summer just gone, we did a camp at the University of the West Indies for 4 weeks, a joint camp. And I was pleased to say, it's the first camp ever held in Barbados for women. And we had 68 girls attending the camp, not in total, almost every week for 4 weeks. So that tells you that the hunger and thirst is there. They just really need the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, it sounds fantastic. I can't wait to get back out there and have some flying fish cutters and some roti. It's just not the same here.
Well, I mean, listen, it's always something to look forward to, Darren.
Oh,
And
big time.
yeah, I just want to say a little bit about the book, Darren.
Yeah, of course.
Really the journey. This book, it takes readers on a journey, really starting, from my humble beginnings in Barbados. Moving to England, navigating the challenges of being the first Black cricketer to represent England international level. So, the story of really is determination, adaptation, breaking new ground in cricket and beyond. It also has a cultural and social impact. I didn't just play cricket. I lived through pivotal moments of social change. So the book explores how cricket became a platform for cultural representation, and how my identity as a Barbadian, as a black man, really shaped my experiences off the field. So, you know, lots of lessons learned. And, so whether you're a cricket fan or not, there's something in this book for everyone. It's about overcoming obstacles, and there were many along the way. It's about staying true to yourself. The lessons I've learned about leadership, perseverance, and growth. So really, this isn't just a book for cricket enthusiasts. It's for anyone really who's ever had to overcome adversity, and there are many people who've had to do that, or challenge the status quo. And it's an honest, unfiltered look at my life, my career, and the lessons that can inspire anyone really to break their own barriers. So if you want a story of hope, resilience, and triumph, really, this book is for you. It's not just purely a cricket book that has everything about what I've done in cricket. If you want the stats, those are quite easily found elsewhere. It does have that type of information, but I think primarily the things that I just mentioned, that's really what this book is about.
Yeah. And it's called?
It's called Breaking Barriers, Barbados to England and Back.
And when is it out? It's out very soon, yeah?
Yes, the first launch will be here in Barbados, the University of the West Indies, in April. Then we've got a launch in Trinidad, third week of April, and then it will be launched in UK, middle of May.
Okay. Well, I will make sure that everyone is kept up to date with the chance to buy the book. And by the sounds of it, it sounds like a really cracking read. And your story is interesting and admirable as well. I think from what you're saying there, and the times you lived through on and off the field, it does sound to be essential reading.
Yeah, Darren, I think you'll enjoy it. Obviously you'll read a lot of things that people don't know, because over the years there's not everything that you can say. The only thing about doing a book is the fact that you have to sit down and really recount all the things that have happened to you over the years, which you don't normally do, apart from when you're actually doing the book. So it's been good for me to do that. It's been a reminder also that, the so many things that's happened in my life, both good and bad. But it's a reminder.
Well, I look forward to reading it, and I'm going to track you down, and I'm going to get you to sign it for me as well when I get it.
That will be a great pleasure.
Yeah. Roland Butcher, all the way from beautiful Barbados, and many, many thanks for your time today. And yes, so we shall look forward to the release of your, it sounds like a stunning book, which will be in the springtime. So, Roland, many thanks for joining me.
Darren, great pleasure, and look forward to seeing you this summer as well.